Alright, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rahah Wadash. Yahweh is the Most High, the Heavenly Father, and Yahweh Shai is the Messiah, the only begotten Son of the Most High, which these are the true names, the exclusive names of the Most High and His only begotten Son in the ancient Hebrew tongue, which is the holy language which the Heavenly Father have given us in these last days to call upon His true name and His Son's true name in spirit and in truth. Also, want to give double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, and the up and coming elders which rule well and teach well of Great Millstone. I want to give peace and blessings unto the elect, the house of David, and the 144,000 elect men, whoever you may be. Shalom to you. And shalom to the fellow laborers who testify of Yahweh Shai and that publish this word. Yahweh Shai said concerning you men, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of the Most High. And that's exactly what you do. You make peace unto the hearer by teaching His word. If they receive your word, whosoever heareth your word, if they believe, they are brought back to the Most High through faith in Yahweh Shai. So what you're doing is a good thing for others, but it will also profit you in the end. So I exhort you men to continue in the work. The focus of this lesson is prophecy, particularly prophecy concerning civil war, insurrection, this is a major thing which will come to pass in America, man. A time of great confusion. A time of great disorder. A time of people, the poor, the working class, the laborers, the sufferers of society, rising up against, this rulership, against this current authority, administration, man. Because even now the people are mourning under his rule, under Edom's rule, man. The cost of living is high. The unemployment rate is great. Now you have this tariff war that Esau have started by way of Trump, which can, this is the speculation of many, which can ultimately lead to a market crash and a recession, economic collapse, which that can disrupt the supply chain, cause hyperinflation, the cost of living becoming even more greater, layoffs, businesses closing, failing, just a total collapse of society, which that can lead to strife, uproars of the people, man. So I just want to, jump straight into it. Before I get into it, I looked, I went to this abcnews.com, and this is what Trump said amidst this tariff war that he started, which ultimately Trump, he's a figurehead, but this is Esau's intention is probably to bring a controlled collapse. This is probably done, which I'm sure it is, done on purpose, So this is what Trump says: only the weak will fail. So this is the mind of the elites of Edom, the rich and the powerful of the families of Edom. Who is Edom? Edom is the self-proclaimed white people, a people who the Lord hate, a people who is known as Satan and the devil the old serpent in the Bible. He is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. So the elites, the chief of Edom, of the families of Edom, your politicians, your bankers, your deep state, whatever you want to call them, they have no regard for the poor, for the lesser. And who's the lesser in their sight? The working class. The laborers, the working people. Most of all, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indians. He counts you as nothing. Which this mentality will cause a lot of mourning amongst the people, man. So, all we gotta do is watch. Cannot say for certain if this is gonna lead to an economic crash, but there will be an economic crash. This is something that the prophets have warned of. So let's, touching upon that statement that Trump made, only the weak will fail. It remind me of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 11. It says, let our strength be the law of justice. And one of Esau's main ambitions is what? To implement a digital payment system tied to AI, a biometric digital payment system, man, tied to AI. Which the main instrument of that will be a human microchip, a real piece of technology, a real piece of device, which will be implanted in the flesh of man, in the hand or in the head. And this is mentioned in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 16 to verse 18. And this is one of his main ambitions. And this is something that he will cause by way of his strength, by way of his influence. He will make that to be the right way, the way that is good or right. It will be a trend. So let's read it again. Let our strength be the law of justice. And that's the mind of Edom. He's the strong, he's the powerful, and whatever he says is right. And that's the spirit that he's going to come with when it comes to the mark. That this is the way. Walk ye in it. And he will enforce it. Among the people. Having no regard to what is truly, morally, ethically right. Which that's an evil thing to, to merge man with technology. To make things which is organic and inorganic, that's something that Esau want to do. And no one is going to sway this man from his plans. This is what he desires, and this is what he's going to do. Let our strength be the law of justice. We're the strong. We're going to do what we want to do. Whatever we say goes. It says, for that which is feeble, and who's that is feeble? You so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Indians. But not only you Israelites, just, all the working class, the laborers, the sufferers, those who work much but bring in little, those who pay taxes, you know, the low class, you know, and the middle class too. It says, for that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. Yeah, he will have no regard for you people. And we can see that with this tariff war. Now Esau, he's portraying it, this move. He's portraying this move to be something that's going to lead to our good. But ultimately, Esau, the things that he would do, the things that he's planning, is really for you evil, for your evil, man. You know, it's really for your sorrow. You know, he's gonna bring a crash. Somehow, some way, the things that he doeth will lead to a famine, a scarcity, or a lack of, shall I say, a famine. Don't always need to be a scarcity. It could just means a lack of access to food. And that's something that an economic crash can lead to. A lack of access to food. You know, the supply chain crashing. You know, truckers stop moving. They stop being paid. They're laid off. You know, businesses fail. Just a crash in every way. You know? And the low class, the middle class, you're going to suffer. You're the weak that will fail. You know, you're the dross in his sight, something unimportant, useless, and set to the side. You know? And this will ultimately lead to did I read this? Oh, this will also, yeah, let's get this. Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. I will stir up Egyptian against the Egyptian. Yeah, and the modern day Egyptian is the American. In the book of Revelation chapter 11, it tell you that America, it don't say America, but we have understanding of it. You know, it tell you that, you know, it's referring to America. It's spiritually called Sodom in Egypt. And we could see that, we could prove that by just, you know, seeing what's done in America, what's been done in America, you know, sodomy, you know, wickedness like that. But not only that, this is also a place where the true Hebrew Israelites have been, you know, enslaved at and oppressed at. So this is a modern day house of bondage, a modern day Egypt. So when the scripture speaks about Egypt, sometimes it's referring to America. You just need the understanding of it. You know, in fact, that's called what? An epithet. So like an epithet, which means a descriptive title or name. Something that describe you, a title or name that describe you. So America is called Egypt because it's similar to ancient Egypt. It's a place, you know, where Israel were enslaved at, oppressed by, you know. It's spiritually called Sodom is because sodomite acts is done, you know. So, you know, just understanding, need understanding. And we get understanding through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. We get understanding through the prophets who ultimately teach through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. It says, I will stir up Egyptian against Egyptian. So this signifies a time of civil war, civil strife, a time of variance and division. And the main causes of that is what? Economic crash. You know? economic decline, man. You know, the people lacking and struggling to live, having no access to food, no jobs paying, no businesses, no work. And this tariff war can lead or be a step to these prophecies. It says, I will stir up Egyptian against Egyptian, brother will fight against brother, neighbor against neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom, civil war, insurrection, race wars, just different battles and, conflicts, strife. Disorder, man, on all fronts. Having no respect or regard for your government, for your authority. That's the spirit that's going to be put upon the people. Having no respect for fellow citizen. People are going to be robbing each other, killing each other, If you think crime is bad now, how much more when it's this whole society crash? When it truly fails. So let's go to the book of Job, chapter 20, verse 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. We're in a time of Esau's sufficiency, abundance. What is that? Basically we are at the height, or we are at the highest point of his agenda. He's very close to doing what he wants. AI, building AI infrastructure, making things more digital, moving closer to digital payment, basically closer to paving the way for his new world order. That's his sufficiency. So it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Straits means what? Difficulty, a position of difficulty and hardship. And this is what's ultimately coming to, this current authority, this rulership. Your politicians, the authorities of the land. It says, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Now I wanted to focus on that. When you go into that word wicked, it's from the Hebrew word
Strong's H 6001. A male,
which means toiling, a laborer. So the wicked is referring to what? The laborers of this society, man. Those who toil and sweat. The working class, the poor, who Esau sees as the weak, the unimportant, the less or the lesser. The so-called bottom feeders, And forgive me, my tongue. Today I've been, a little off. Been trying to make this video, a couple of times, So a workerman, the working class, So the time shall come where the workers or the working class, those who suffer in this society, the poor, will ultimately come against this government, this authority, this rulership, by way of what? Insurrection, uproars, and uprising, and rising against your modern day kings and princes, having enough strife, chaos in the streets. In fact, let's go here real quick. Let's go to 2nd Esdras chapter 15. Verse 15. It says, "For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh." Yeah, so armed conflict is coming to America. Gun battles and gun battles, man, is coming to America, man. In the streets near us, especially in the cities, It says, "And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." Yeah. And you think about the American people, which, happily practice the Constitution, the right to bear arms, So when the people, truly, gathered together, had enough, the time shall come where they will take in hand their weapons, whether legally or illegally gotten. It says, for there shall be sedition among men. Now let's go into that word sedition. Slakia. A conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. So violent strife, a rebellion, insurrection, a revolt, civil disorder, civil war, a rioting. But this rioting is not going to be like the past rioting and protests in the past, due to different controversies that happened in America, such as with George Floyd. This time that I'm reading of is going to be greater than those times, man, because it's not going to be first, ultimately Esau, the time shall come when Esau, he's not going to use rubber bullets. The time shall come. He's going to stop the rubber bullets. He's going to use real bullets against you people, man. And this is prophecy as well. He's going to set up concentration camps or dissident camps, whatever he call it. People are going to be slayed by the military or whatever type of military there will be, whether it be NATO forces or whatever, or foreign forces, or mercenaries, who knows. Which you had in the past, American military personnel basically are already aware that the time shall come where they're going to have to fight against their own people. Whistleblowers speaking about, martial law, a time of civil war. Right, these are times nigh at hand. And it's going to be more violent. The times of Jacob trouble, the time of great tribulation, the times of great perplexity. It's going to be more violent than ever before seen. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. You know, think about the time when the people stormed the Capitol building. I forgot what the place called. You know, it says they shall not regard their kings or princes. Anarchy. Go into that word anarchy. You know, a lack of authority, basically a lack of respect for authority. And not only that, but for the law. You think about crime now, how much greater will it be during those days, you know? And a lot of people are going to die in those days by way of armed conflict. It says, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Yeah, they will do whatever they feel like they can do. You know, the numbers and the weapons the people have. Which that's the spirit that's been on the people. You know. Oh, we got the numbers. We the people, we have the numbers. You know, we could take them down. Well, that's the same. Is it going to be even more extreme spirit like that on them? On the people in these coming days, you know? The course of their actions shall stand in their power. Yeah, we will do, basically, they will do whatever they can do. Whatever they can do, they will do. Nothing will be off the table, basically. You know? In their numbers, with their power, if they feel like they could take down the government, they're going to do it. You know? It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Yup. You know? So Esau, this is not only Trump's mentality concerning you people, but the elites. Because Trump, he's a figurehead. He's controlled. You know? This is the mind of the elites. As it is written in the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2. Let's get it again. For that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. So, you have no worth. And to the elites. You know, to the rich, to the powerful, those who control this, you know, society. You know, and it makes you think about the Georgia Guidestone where it speaks about depopulation. You know, and it makes you think about on how when civil strife do come, when pushback do come against the government, against the elites or their you know, their power systems, you know. Don't think, again, the time shall come when they're going to put an end to using rubber bullets. They're going to use real bullets. But not only that, it makes you think about the different weapons they do have. Drones. That would, in my mind, I don't think that's off the table. I don't think it's off the table. I think that's something on the table they're going to use, man, against you people. Especially if you're rising up. Don't think this man going to use drones, different bombs, you know, and missiles. You know, you see what's happening to the Palestinian people. Don't think that won't happen in America. See, at least the rich, they have their bunkers, you know. And I'm not saying, like, you know, in terms of big missile like a nuke, but, you know, don't think they won't use different house destroying or building destroying bombs, man, from time to time against you people. Hey, Jacob Troubles, man, it's prophesied that well, it says it in 2nd Ezra chapter 15. Houses shall be destroyed. Let's read it again. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. Whole lot of gun battles and probably drone attacks, bombs, small bombs being dropped. You know? possibly robot dogs. Who knows, man? What this man, what measures this man will take against you people? The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. You know? So what is coming? You know, because this is what the prophet Esdras saw in the visions that the Lord showed him concerning the end of the world. You know? So what is coming to this country that will make men, grown men, afraid? Jeremiah chapter 30, you know, painted a picture. When you read it, it paints a picture of great terror. You know, it mentions man's faces being pale. You know? Yeah, what happened? You know, what make a man's face turn pale? Like he done seen a ghost. Death, destruction, great evil, man. It speaks about in Jeremiah chapter 30, every man's hands on his loins and on his stomach. You think you think about you know, touching on that prophecy. You know what type of horror you have to see that will cause a grown man to hold his stomach? It also speaks about men travailing like a woman, man. So you know what type of horror that's coming that will make men cry and wail. You know? This is what's coming. So, you know, so thinking about these different bombs and drones, militaries marching through the land, military trucks, and you know, this environment becoming more like the environment of Gaza or something like that, or different war zones in the Middle East. You know? Hey, you know, these things is coming, man. I can't say for certain if those things are going to be used, you know. But it's now off the table. You know, I was meditating. I looked this scripture up. Sirach chapter 13, verse 18. What agreement is there between the hyena and the dog? And what peace between the rich and the poor? And yeah, this is a spirit of vibration that the Lord will put in America. A variance, a strife between the rich and the poor, the great and the small. It says, as the wild ass is the lion's prey in the wilderness, so the rich eat up the poor. And this is what we're seeing now. You know, Esau, the elites, you know, Donald Trump, his current administration will make certain moves that's going to really bring more suffering to you people, man. You know? But also these different draconian measures that he will implement. You know? Harsh decrees that he will decree. The MOTB. You know, he will cause people to take. Is oppressive. You know? It says, as the proud hate humility, so doeth the rich abhor the poor. And we're going to see the elites, these politicians, this current administration, you know, the rich and the powerful, you know, express their hatred by the things that they do and the things that they will cause with no regard towards you people. You know? Let's read Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 10. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day, save the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry. Yeah, what type of cry? A cry of disapproval, a cry of help, of opposition, of against the authority. It says that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate. Now, a gate, when you go into it, it's synonymous to the word port, and basically this is was a place of commerce, back then. So the time shall come, which it applies to now. It's relevant for now. This prophecy can apply to now as well. The time shall come when this economy is going to crash. Hey, how you doing? Nothing. This economy going to crash. The market going to crash. And look up how that can affect, you, the people. I can't really, I don't really know, it all by heart. So look it up for yourself. It says, and an howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hill. It says, howl ye inhabitants of Matesh. It says, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. So the time shall come when civil war, insurrection, sedition will come, due to how this government will move. Bad political, economic mistakes that's going to hurt you people, further. I'm close off that. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. I want to give all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Shalom.